It's time now for the Ask the Mayor program here in your hometown news station, AM 1300 KGLO, as Mason City's Mayor John Lee joins us again for conversation to talk about what's going on in the community. Mr. Lee, welcome back.
Hey, Bob, how we doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm blessed. Doing well.
Well, 2 weeks on this, 2 weeks ago on this show, of course, we talked about the rezoning of the land in city's River City Industrial Park on the southwest side. And back on Tuesday night, the council approved the second of 3 readings on that. Our last conversation, we discussed a number of things, including the potential for a data center being constructed on that land. And I know you talked about maybe going to do a little bit more investigation on things and get some more feedback. Tell us, first of all, what you've learned in that 2-week period between then and now.
Oh, for sure. Very educational, learning. So obviously the emails continue to come in, the phone calls, the conversations, the coffees. That's been happening a lot. But I did take a Tuesday off during last week and headed down and visited 5 different data centers, one in Waukee, one in West Des Moines, 2 in West Des Moines, one in Des Moines, and one in Altoona. Knocked with neighbors, and I know Jeff Hines did that last Friday, and he took a couple people down with him. And what I think we all learned when we were down there is when people talk about noise pollution, there just really isn't noise pollution. A couple of them hum, some make no noise. I couldn't hear anything outside of Facebook on property line. There just wasn't no noise, but there was noise on other ones. You heard every once in a while there must have been a door that opened and security would, you'd hear the buzz or the alarm every once in a while, but it would shut down. And so there's industrial noise, but the constant noise to me wasn't there. We talked to neighbors. One was a gated community right across from the one in West Des Moines. There's a gated community there. And I talked to one of the neighbors. He actually said they've been great neighbors and he preferred them over a bunch of residential. I don't know if I would personally agree with that, but that's what he said.
Right.
And then when I got to Altoona, there was 2 neighbors, and what's funny is they tell you people from Arkansas have been up, Missouri been up, Minnesota's been down. So everybody in the country is looking at these, trying to figure it out. So you just keep moving forward every day, trying to figure out the pros and the cons, weigh all pros against all cons. But when it comes down to it, again, this is a bit about rezoning. We are trying to recruit data centers. They're the number one industrial thing being built across this country right now. But I think Will Simmons said it pretty well last night. Like we've had a certified ready site, industrial site for 10 years down there and gotten nothing. We've had a ton of interest, but no one's, made that phone call and said, let's do a development agreement. So just because we're doing this doesn't mean we're going to get anything in the next year or two. But even if on April 8th, let's say the rezoning goes through, and April 8th, someone calls and that QTS is serious and they call and go, let's enter into it. We found out last night through chat and everything, like they got to go through a Alliant process, their development agreement. That's at best 4 to 6 month deal. Then they'd come to us after that agreement. And at best, like if everything checked off, they might be digging next spring. Like that's the fastest probably could happen. So we're still a long ways out. It is a slow process. I know to some people it feels like it is a fast process. I heard a really good example once. It's like if you're driving in a car, you know where all the turns are, you feel like you're in control. But to the passengers, it feels sometimes you're out of control. And I think sometimes we in the government forget that. That to us, we understand where we're going, we understand the process, we understand these 3 reads, we understand the next 3 reads. But not everybody understands that too. So to some people, it feels like we're out of control and we're going too fast. And I think, council said last night that this is a slower process and we'll stay on that course.
Well, you talk about it's been, a decade plus since that has been that area has been basically some of the part of that area has been a certified shovel-ready site.
Yes.
I mean, but it also has been industrial park area since that land was annexed, or some of that land was annexed back, I believe, even 20 years ago.
Yeah, the exact timeline is before I got on there. But yeah, it's been annexed for a while. Alliance been, down across, but we've been building out there in Amazon, Bushel Boy, now Best Boy, I think it is.
Yep.
So yeah, we've been trying to build that area out and advertise that as best we can to try to grow the tax base for Mason City. And as they mentioned last night, and I continue to remind people, We don't know what the future holds. And our state is very adamant at moving a property tax through that is going to really hamper the ability to collect taxes. And I understand, like, people are like, well, we don't want you to collect taxes. Like, I understand we are all feeling the squeeze, but things continue to become more expensive. And so the only way then is to get new tax base, and any industry in that area would be beneficial to us.
Well, some of the people that spoke at the meeting back on Tuesday night included some iron workers who wanted these types of jobs to be here in Mason City. They're saying that they're having to go, really far away to do that type of work, and they'd like to have some work that's a little closer to home.
Yeah, we have a lot of people don't realize that, but we have a lot of union members in North Iowa and Mason City specifically, and we're way down compared to. I've learned that in the last 2 weeks. Many of the union representatives from around the state of Iowa and the union in Mason City have come and said, "Listen, this is kind of what's going on, and we've lost a lot of union, but we still have a strong group here." And they leave every week. They head to Des Moines or Cedar Rapids, and they're like, "This would be a really good opportunity for us to stay local, keep the money here." And you hear people last night, how long would they be here? And the ironworkers said it'd be at least 5 years, like at least 5 years of building out. Some of the electricians said this would be a 5 to 10 year build out, and that they may be here for 10 straight years. Let's say 5 for sure. And anywhere between, I've heard different numbers. I don't know what the numbers are until someone comes forward and knocks on the door and says, we can see their plan. But I've heard it as low as 600 construction workers on the low end, all the way up to over 2,000 on the high end. I've heard higher numbers, but I just can't believe that. So I'm going to keep it at 2,000. But that's kind of what, and these guys, and representation, former Mason City, Charlie Wishman has come up and spoke for the union, and a couple guys out of Waverly. And so they're just trying to get something built in this community and protect the union workers in this area.
And back to, that land, Chad Schreck from the North Iowa Corridor Economic Development Corporation, was up a few times at Tuesday night's meeting. And that's something in conversations I've tried to have on this program through the years about economic development. There might be a lot of looking at Mason City, but unfortunately there's been, a lot of opportunities that have passed us by for one reason or another, not necessarily the community or the land or anything. It's just happened that way.
I think he made a good reference, like buying a home.
Yeah.
You can look at 20 homes and buy one and make an offer on one. Doesn't mean the other 19 weren't good homes. They just didn't fit your need and what you wanted. And I think that's really true in business, that a lot of these people look at many different sites in Iowa, in the Midwest, or in America, and they look at us just door knocking, kicking the tires, and some are more serious about it and get to the point where, like, okay, we're going to make an offer on this car, so to speak, or house. And we negotiate, and sometimes it fits, sometimes it doesn't fit. We've come real close before, and people walked away. Councilman Latham talked about a plastic glove, a surgical glove outfit that almost came here 8 or 10 years ago, whatever it was. It was a $16-17 million project. I mean, it sounded like we were at the point to sign the deal. They called up and said, we're going somewhere else. And so it constantly happens, for sure. And it's a thankless job, and it's something obviously we have to do. There is a lot more strikeouts than singles, let alone home runs.
Also on Tuesday night, at the beginning of the meeting, a representative from Alliant Energy tried to address some of the concerns or the comments that were made in the meeting 2 weeks ago about energy prices and the build out and everything, and hopefully dispel some of those myths.
Yeah, actually, Alliant said, listen, and they didn't really say it, but I'll give them a little bit of credit. They made a pledge on their website a long time ago that any major energy user will pay out for expansion. Well, then a couple of weeks ago, Trump had a meeting with 7 of the big users in America, and they all pledged the same thing. Alliant pledged before all they did. And I'm glad. They should be. These businesses are huge. They are worth billions and billions of dollars. They can build out their own infrastructure. And that is the expectation. And Alliant has made it very clear that they will build out. What I try to tell people, and it is a way to get some money back from these billion-dollar corporations, that they pay back in a lot of property taxes, but yet there's a lot of, like you said, construction jobs that come in. They will look for things to do. It'll give opportunities for other businesses in Mason City. But again, we're far from that. But again, that's what drives the interest for sure.
And rates, the Alliant representative said they're locked in.
Yeah.
And that's an Iowa Utilities
the Iowa Utilities Commission, IUC, said, first off, they're going to be locked in for 5 years, and there's 4 more years of that locked in. They cannot raise rates for us at least 4 years. But when a data center comes or another major energy user, they will become part of our grid. And what I try to tell people, there's always obviously labor costs that go up. All pricing goes up, steel goes up. There's expenses that continue to go up. And when that happens at Alliant, and it will because every business has expenses, every user pays for that via kilowatt hours. And so if this company is 50% of the kilowatt hours, they will pay 50% of the upgrade. If they weren't here, any company, that would leave the residents of Mason City to pay for all upgrades. So it does slow down as a simple economics, but I should probably say it that way, but that's kind of how it would work out. And rates would go up slower. They're locked in for 4 years anyways.
One of the other things that I think was mentioned, from residents at the podium, as well as some on the council, talking about if there would ever be a development agreement with a data center. And once again, that's, mile 20 of the marathon. We're on mile 1 right now.
Right. Yeah.
2. That they would not want to see any type of tax rebate incentive or anything like that. And there would be, that's obviously something the city would have to negotiate out. And there's been, was on the Amazon project, was there any tax rebate or is that just straight up they wanted to?
No,
because I think there's maybe one good example of, a larger company saying we're not going to take a whole bunch of tax rebate from the town.
3 or 5 years ago, even the L201, they're a 70% rebate. Cedar Rapids was about a 70% rebate. But these were a couple years ago when there wasn't a bunch of pushbacks. And Waukee gave rebate, but they're still bringing in, 10 to 20, $30 million a year, right. Even with rebates. And so when it comes to a rebate, it's super simple for us to sit here and say there should be no rebates. They should pay everything up front. And maybe that's where we start as a talking point. And Microsoft said they will no longer ask for rebates from anyone. So they're making the ground floor. Like, we're going to pay our way. And now, so people say, well, they're paying their way. Why don't you? And I think it's actually a business more than, hey, let us pay our way. I think it's going to push out a lot of possible data centers who need rebates to grow.
Right.
So Microsoft is just gobbling up that space, and it's a corporate move. Brilliant, if you ask me, and it would benefit local. But the thing about that is what happens a lot is they'll say, hey, give us a 20% rebate, 50%, 70% rebate. But what we'll do is throw up $10 million or whatever, $10 million up front for community benefit program. If we give 0% rebate, I'm assuming they're going to say, well, you're going to collect your taxes. We're just not going to give you that $10 million up front.
Right.
And we'd want some of that up front because that way we can maybe help that neighborhood build out to a park or something. We may want that money up front to help schools right away. We may want that money up front to work on our mall. There's reasons why we may want some money up front. And to get that money up front, they're going to want a rebate. I wouldn't think any business would come in and say, hey, give us 0% and we'll give you $20 million. That's right. Just not feasible. And I don't think any of us should be thinking that's feasible for a company. So what I just try to tell people is we want to get to the table. We want to get to that development agreement and sit down and say, okay, here's what we want. What do you want? It's like as a realtor, someone wants to buy that home for $200,000. It's listed for $240,000. We can get it down there sometimes, and sometimes we can't. It's up to both sides. If we can't come a deal, then they both go their own way. We stay here, they go on the road, and the deal isn't reached. So it'll come down to negotiations. But I don't go in negotiations with a whole lot of this has to be it. I want to see the whole package and see if it's good for the city or not.
3 weeks until the third and final reading is scheduled. And what do you expect to happen in that 3 weeks? Obviously, you get a lot of public feedback and then a lot more looking into things. And once again, we're just dealing with a rezoning at this point.
I think it's the constant. It drifts to data center, and I do the same thing. And then we take a pause. And say, okay, it's rezoning. is this the right rezoning? It's about rezoning, and we've listened to the neighbors. We built into that rezoning some very strict things, and that by law, any industry who comes or builds on that down the road has to buy them. And we could get more restrictive after that with the development agreement, but this is the baseline. So what's going to happen in the next 3 weeks is we're going to continue to hear from people who have their concerns or are against it. We're going to continue hearing from the people who are for it. I would encourage every Mason Cityan, if you are in favor or against, to reach out to your councilman and let them know. And let them know what you think, either via phone, email, or whatever. And for the next 3 weeks, the council will continue doing their due diligence. They will continue reading their emails and responding. I will continue doing what I've done and communicate and talk to everybody and listen. And then we'll listen one more time on April 7th, and every councilman will decide for themselves what they feel is in the best interest of that neighborhood and or Mason City's current and future. And that's how it's going to play out.
Well, let's talk about a few other things before we wrap things up. Last night, the council also dealing with a development agreement with Golden Grain Energy, who is currently the city's largest individual property taxpayer. They're looking to make a big investment into their facility, making some improvements.
Yeah, and it comes down to safety and fire and trying to make sure that their investment and their people are protected, and they are sinking a couple $1 million into that, which is going to, make that facility even bigger, stronger, and safer, and add to their tax base eventually. But meanwhile, we offer the TIF monies and stuff like that. So again, they are a great partner to the city. They continue to invest. They are in the same neighborhood that we talked about too, with the rezoning right across the street right there. And so, yeah, that's a big investment for them and a good partner for the city.
And the council also, 2 weeks ago, the water reclamation facility bids came back, and they were a little bit out of whack compared to the engineer's estimates. And city has been able to, work some things out and try to get this project moving forward with approving a revised bid last night.
Yeah, it's a timeline. The unfunded mandate by the federal government, that time's creeping up, and we need to get shovels in the ground, get this thing going, and to hit our deadline. So WHKS sat down with us and really worked through things and said, let's look at what the law actually says, and let's make sure we hit that mark. But there are other things that the law allows us to maybe postpone a little while. To make sure all waters are reclaimed and cleaned and whatever. And so we were able to push a couple things off a couple years, and we should be able to. And Brent Henson did a great job last night. Everybody wants a little more detail, go back and watch it, but we should be able to absorb a lot of that cost. And I know it sounds ridiculous, ultimately $40 million through fees, through annual fees for the next 20 years. And this is a 20-year loan. And so we will use fees to require that in the next 3 to 5 years. It may be a 3.5% to 5% increase in fees, which is significant. But after that, we should be able to do it through basically inflationary means. And so hopefully after the next couple of years, people don't feel the pinch, but knowing that we found a way to structure it. So we're not increasing anybody's taxes by 15 or 20% on something like that, which we can't do anyways, but yeah.
Anything else from Tuesday night's meeting that you want to hit on?
No, but probably worth mentioning that it's spring season and construction's coming around the pike, and Highway 122 is starting this, week, and they're moving things around, and construction on 122, just like last year. They're going to finish that by Thanksgiving. It's crazy to think, but it will be a whole construction season. South Federal will be closed past 19th Street. Just like South Federal was. It's going to be shut down. There'll be a big detour there. We're going to get started on 19th Street Southwest out by Newman, and that intersection that's probably way overdue. And then we also have a roundabout going up by Casey's on 12th Street and Taft or Pierce. And so we got a lot of construction going on. And I kind of wrote the letter to citizens. I understand it's inconvenient. I don't know how many times I get caught going down the wrong way and get frustrated with myself. Say, oh, I should have avoided it, but you get caught up. But I'm going to tell a quick story about there's an investor in town who's dropped. I'll leave his name out of it because I don't know if he wants me to tell the story or not.
Right.
But when he came to look at Mason City 3 to 5 years ago, he saw a lot of investment into our town, and he goes, I won't invest in a community that isn't investing in themselves. So one way to look at construction, it is an inconvenient. I get it. And it's hard on those businesses. And that's why and just encourage everybody to support those businesses as much as you can. Go out of your way, support those businesses. But it is an investment in our community, and it's something the cities have to do to remain a strong, vibrant community and city, and to put ourselves in a better position for the years to come and for the next generation. So this year will be just like last year. There will be a lot of construction. Slow down, give yourself some time, and be courteous of all drivers.
And a lot of that, as I know, we talked with Pete Helmstead with the DOT here a couple of days ago. It's dealing with the underground infrastructure as well, and that's a lot of the time taken on these projects. If you're going to have the highway torn up, you might as well replace everything that's underneath it, because you don't want to pave those roads again and then dig them up, a very short time later, just because, well, we had a chance to replace the water main or the sewer line or things like that, other infrastructure, and we blew that opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a great point. When we dig these roads up, we try to do everything in and around them because it's just financially smart for the long term, but it slows everything down. And a lot of people are like, I don't see anybody working there for days. And a lot of times what we're working on may only require a couple people, and not the big, equipment, or they are where they are, or it's raining, whatever. But we assure you that we are trying to get this as fast as we can, but it is a huge inconvenience. And I recognize that.
Mayor, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you in 3 weeks.
Bob. Appreciate it.
All righty. Mayor John Lee here in Mason City, as this has been the Ask the Mayor program here on your hometown news station, AM